a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam & Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Coming up on the program in moments, we'll talk with Philip Van Cleave of the Virginia Citizens Defense League about an upcoming special session. We know that this special session is likely to be called by Governor Ralph Northam. What we don't know right now specifically is what is going to be on the agenda for that special session. Like most of the country, Virginia is seeing a tax crunch right now. The expected revenue, not what it was supposed to be, thanks to the coronavirus closures that began back in March. And so there are going to have to be some budget cuts made in the state of Virginia. But Democrats in control of the state legislature, we're hearing, want to add all kinds of things to the agenda for this special session that have nothing to do with budgetary issues. So obviously, policing measures and depolicing measures are at the top of the list. But you've got some lawmakers that are already out there talking about bringing back some gun control laws, including the centerpiece of Governor Ralph Northam's anti-gun campaign in the last session that concluded just a short time ago. Remember, Governor Northam did get about a half dozen gun control bills through the legislature, but the big one, House Bill 961, which was a ban on so-called assault weapons, ban on so-called large-capacity magazines, a ban on legally owned suppressors, that bill actually failed. There were 4 Democrat state senators who said, listen, we're not opposed to this in theory, but we can't sign off on the specifics of this legislation. So we'll get into that with Philip Van Cleave here in just a moment. Before we do, President Trump has a huge announcement for his top supporters. He'll be celebrating the 2020 Republican National Convention later this summer. He wants you to enter for your chance to join him at the convention. If you win, the team will cover the flight, hotel, and give you VIP accesses for yourself and a guest. Did I say VIP accesses? VIP access for yourself and a guest, although I guess it is plural. But I think it's still access. All you have to do is text ENGAGE to 88022 today for your chance to meet President Trump at the convention. Again, that is ENGAGE to 88022 to enter to win this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be a special guest, paid for by Donald J. Trump for President Incorporated. All right, so let's get to our conversation with Philip Van Cleave of the Virginia Citizens Defense League, talking not only about this special session, but some of the lawsuits that have now been filed by VCDL and Gun Owners of America, challenging some of the gun control laws that did go onto the books on July the 1st. Take a look and a listen. Philip Van Cleave, good to talk with you, sir. Thanks so much for coming on the program today.
Oh, always enjoy being on, Cam.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate all the work that you're doing in Virginia. We saw yesterday a ceremonial signing ceremony from Governor Ralph Northam. His gun control bills went into effect July the 1st, but I guess he wanted that extra victory lap, Phil. He wanted the press attention to show, the new laws that are now in effect across the Commonwealth.
Yeah, he wanted to showcase his tyranny. It was nothing more than one additional slap in the face of gun owners. I mean, that's all he's done to us is slap us over and over again. He's no friend. He doesn't even pretend to be.
Yeah. And now, we're hearing rumors that he's coming back for more. We expect a special session to be called. Originally, this was supposed to be to deal with the budget crunch because of the coronavirus closures. The state's going to get less tax revenue, but now Democrats in control of the legislature want to just, pile on. So we're hearing talk that there's going to be, policing bills, and then maybe even House Bill 961, that gun ban, magazine ban, suppressor ban that Governor Northam could not get through the legislature. We're hearing that that's coming back. How confident are you that that's going to be the case when this special session resumes this summer?
You never know. VCDL has put on a campaign of having our members bombard the General Assembly members early, saying we don't want any more gun control. So our hope is that even if he's pushing it, that they'll push back and say, we got an election coming up. We're not touching this right now.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We have to push back. We definitely have to push back. That's our best hope, to maybe have it not even be an issue.
And I know that, thousands of Virginians have contacted their lawmakers through the VCDL website just over the past few days, which is fantastic to see. I mean, clearly gun owners in Virginia, we have not given up the fight. And nor are we ignoring what's going on. I mean, I know it's the summer and maybe people are not paying as much attention to politics as they normally would. But I don't think that's the case for Second Amendment advocates in Virginia.
Well, we can't afford to turn our backs on this and just pretend nothing's going on. VCDL has really got its radar up. We've got somebody in every locality watching for local gun control.
Mm-hmm.
And that's starting to pay off now. We're pushing a resolution saying no local gun control. And, some localities are getting ready to start acting on that. So things are starting to move there. Yes, pressure is on. But you cannot, Bloomberg is bought and paid for this General Assembly and the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. So it would not surprise me that they're going to keep pushing to pay him back. It doesn't matter that it hurts us. All that matters is they're paying back this billionaire in New York.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And going back to House Bill 961, that sweeping gun magazine suppressor ban, this failed in the Virginia State Senate earlier this year. There were 4 Democrats who voted against it. And they said that they weren't opposed in theory to the idea of this gun, but they didn't like the specifics. Obviously, Virginia gun owners opposed both in theory and with the specifics of that legislation. But how concerned are you that gun control advocates in the legislature will continue to try to tweak this bill, maybe throw in a grandfather clause to try to get that Democrat support and allow Governor Northam to sign something that he can call a gun ban?
Well, this one did have a grandfather clause. The other one, SB 16, got pulled out. That one didn't. It was going to take your guns away.
Oh, that's right.
This one does have that. But you're right. You're right, Cam. They could continue to try to sweeten it up, to try to get it to where they think they can get it through with something in there, some kind of, sweetening. And we just can't let that happen. When it comes to this stuff, no gun control is acceptable, none.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. They're gonna try this, and we as gun owners have to stand up and fight back hard on this. If we fight back now, it's a whole lot easier to beat off a law that never becomes a law than one that's actually been signed in.
Boy,
so,
yeah.
we gotta stop it, early and with the show of numbers.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the correction because, you're right. We saw, because again, during the legislative session, we saw, repeated attempts to revise that bill. Originally what it was a ban on magazines over 10 rounds. Then they tried to move it up to, I think it was 13. They tried to tweak this bill to get the support from those Democrat senators. And I know that they'll be, twisting some arms again. I want to ask you as well while we got you here, Phil, because I know that VCDL, Gun Owners of America, have filed at least 2 lawsuits challenging a couple of these new provisions. One, the universal background check law, the other, the 1 gun a month bill. Has the universal background check law, have we had a ruling yet from the judge? I know that we had a hearing a few days ago, right?
That's right. No ruling yet. He's taken it under advisement, which means he's going to study everything and then come back. So it could be any time. It could be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It could be any time. And our hope is that he will, put an injunction in place while our case works through the court.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, there's an agreement, hopefully, that you can't. And remember, this thing turned out that it was also taking away the rights of 18 to 20-year-olds to be able to purchase a handgun. Currently, they couldn't purchase, previously to this law, they couldn't purchase from a dealer, but they could legally buy in a third party. At least they could buy a gun, a handgun. And that's been taken away with this because all sales now, even private ones, have to go through a dealer, and then when they do that background check, Nick's going to say, "Whoa, they're less than 21 years old and they want to buy a handgun." No, can't do. It's not illegal for them to possess the gun. It's just they can't buy one. So
right.
It's ridiculous. That was not what the bill. That's not what the public was told about that bill. It wasn't in the title of the bill. So we're fighting back on that as one of the many things that's wrong with universal background check.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, that was really not even mentioned during the legislative debate, but that amounts to, as you say, a brand new handgun ban for 18, 19, and 20-year-olds in the state of Virginia. Now, in the case of the 1 gun a month law, I know that a judge refused to issue an injunction, but are you all still continuing that case? Is that case still making its way through the court system in Virginia?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we just couldn't get him to stop a law going into effect. It's an extremely high standard you have to meet to do that. And he didn't feel like we made it on one of the 4 tests that you have to pass. So therefore, he let it become law. That doesn't mean we can't stop it, but it just means we didn't have the ability to put it on pause while we fought this out. So both of those lawsuits are moving forward. As is, we still have a lawsuit that's alive, but because of COVID-19, I think it's sort of sitting in limbo right now. And that was the one about the governor being able to declare the Capitol grounds gun-free zone that he did during our lobby day. And again, that was an example of how crazy this governor is. You know, he declares a state of emergency when an organization holds a rally that's always been peaceful and was peaceful with 50,000 people, and yet they can burn down Richmond, and that's not an emergency. That just shows how loony this has got.
It really does. And again, I mean, if you're looking for any sort of consistency on the sake of Governor Northam, the only place you're going to find it is in his anti-gun attitude, unfortunately. So, right now, what is your advice to Virginia gun owners? Be in contact with their lawmakers? Is that the most important thing that they can be doing at the moment?
Well, yes, and two things. One, be in touch with your lawmakers saying, I don't want any more gun control during the special session that's coming up. True is we don't want it at all anyhow, but we're focusing on that right now. Mm-hmm. So we don't want that even brought up. Number two, on the VCDL website, first of all, if you go to the VCDL website, you can click on a link and it'll automatically send a message to your delegate and your senator. So it's very simple. And there's a count up there of how many people have done it. I didn't check today, but yesterday it was like 11,000 emails. The other thing is, it's got an email that you can send to your local government saying, I don't want any local gun control. You guys now have the ability to pass some. I don't want you to pass any. Pass this resolution saying you won't touch it. And some localities, like I said, are moving forward on that. So that's a fairly new campaign. But if you haven't done that, your members should do that.
When it comes to those local ordinances that you all are keeping an eye on around the state, obviously Alexandria, Virginia, we talked about that on the program here. They didn't even wait until July 1st to pass their ordinance. Richmond, Virginia actually had passed an ordinance back in 2019 that was going to go into effect whenever state law allowed it. What are some of the other localities that are now considering adding these additional gun control laws that now that they've been given the green light to do so by the legislature?
Fairfax, Hampton and Newport News are both looking at banning open carry, but are considering leaving concealed carry alone. But you don't ever know. Once they get into that, you never know how that's going to turn out. It's better if they just leave it completely alone, but they are looking at it. And I haven't heard of any other localities yet, but it's fairly early and this just started. So, I think this is going to heat up, and it's something we're going to have to watch very carefully because we don't want that spider web of gun control across the state.
Absolutely. Again, Philip Van Cleave with the Virginia Citizens Defense League. I appreciate you joining me on the program today, sir. It is always good talking with you, and hope we get a chance to catch up again soon.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to get this important message out to gun owners out there.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Phillip Van Cleave with us here on Bearing Arms Cam & Company. All right, we'll be checking in with Phil again in the very near future. And my apologies, we were supposed to talk with Republican House Minority Leader Todd Gilbert on the program as well today about this upcoming special session. Unfortunately, the delegate schedule did not allow that, but we will hopefully be talking with Delegate Gilbert on the program at some point next week, see if we can get a better idea of what he's been hearing at the state capitol in Richmond about what bills might be rearing their ugly heads. All right, before we get to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report, President Trump, special announcement for his top supporters. He'll be celebrating the 2020 Republican National Convention later this summer, and he wants you to enter for your chance to join him at the convention. If you win, the team will cover the flight, hotel, and give you VIP passes for yourself and a guest. All you have to do is text ENGAGE to 88022 today for your chance to meet President Trump at the convention. Again, that's ENGAGE to 88022 to enter to win this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be a special guest, paid for by Donald J. Trump for President, Incorporated. All right, on to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day and our recidivist report. We're going to start there. The case out of Washington, D.C. And this is the headline: Arrest made in 11-year-old David McNeil's death. Police searching for 3 more men. McNeil was fatally shot in the head on his way to a cookout on the 4th of July in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., one of many cities around the country that is now seeing a huge spike in violent crime. And gun control advocates, by the way, are trying to blame this on the rise in gun sales around the country, which is absolute nonsense. There's not a single gun store in Washington, D.C. Anybody who wants to legally buy a gun in Washington, D.C. has to leave the District of Columbia. They got to go into Maryland. They got to go into Virginia. They got to purchase their firearm. Then they have to transfer that firearm back into the District of Columbia. The one FFL who conducted firearms transfers decided he wasn't going to do it anymore a few months ago. And so now it's up to the Metropolitan Police Department to actually conduct those transfers. And what we've been hearing is that it's taking weeks and weeks and weeks for those transfers to be completed. So something tells me that it's not legal gun owners in Washington, D.C. who have all of a sudden decided to start committing more violent crimes. I think what we are seeing here is gang violence. I think we're seeing drug violence. And I think that we are seeing empowered criminals who believe that law enforcement is not responding to these types of crimes as effectively and as proactively as they have been in the past, because in large part of the defund police movement and the anti-police attitudes within the D.C. government. So WUSA, Channel 9 in Washington, D.C., says that one man arrested on Thursday, 3 men wanted in connection to the fatal shooting. There were 4 arrest warrants that have been issued in this case. 18-year-old Daryl Bond was arrested in Southeast D.C., charged with first-degree murder while armed. They're still searching for 19-year-old Carlo General, 25-year-old Marcel Gordon, and 22-year-old Christian Winfield, who actually lives outside of the district in Maryland. According to the Metropolitan Police Department Chief Peter Newsham, all 4 men have gun-related criminal histories. 2 of the men are currently on probation with past felony charges. Yep. He said, quote, Mr. General is currently under Maryland supervised probation out of Temple Hills, Maryland. He was arrested this past spring and charged as a felon in possession of a firearm. After his arrest, he was released back into the community, pending the felony possession charge. Mr. Wingfield, currently under active intensive supervision and was on pretrial high-intensity supervision with a curfew and on GPS monitoring at the time of Davin's murder. He cut off his GPS monitoring device allegedly shortly after the shooting, according to the police chief. Chief says that the police are still working on arrest warrants for a 5th unnamed person connected to the murder. But once again, what we see here is a failure of Washington, D.C.'s gun laws to stop violent criminals from committing violent acts. But we also see a failure of the criminal justice system to treat violent criminals seriously in the first place. Right? So, Mr. General, the guy who's on probation right now for a previous felony charge and was arrested earlier this spring for being a felon in possession, he's 22 years old. He's 22 years old. So why was he out on the street to begin with, given that previous felony charge? And again, what should we expect, given the fact that he was arrested for being a felon in possession and he was immediately cut loose and let back out on the streets? Washington, D.C. needs to get its house in order here, as do, again, many other Democrat-run cities across the country. When we talk about criminal justice reform, this is one of the things we actually have to be talking about. Do I think that, we see these stories again of, people getting sentenced to 40 years in prison for shoplifting. Is that right? Is that fair? Is that justice? No, I don't think so. But what about these stories that we cover each and every day? Violent career criminals who, again, repeatedly get slaps on the wrist, return to the streets to commit more violent crimes, and the cycle starts all over again. Is that justice? I don't think that is either. On to our armed citizen story of the day. A story out of Humboldt County, California, actually, an update on a story that I guess occurred back on July the 2nd. A shooting at a gas station in Blue Lake, California. The prosecutor took a look at this and said, all right, now acting in self-defense here. Maggie Fleming is the DA in Humboldt County. According to LostCoastOutpost.com and the Humboldt County DA's office, she has declined to prosecute the employee of the Patriot gas station in Blue Lake, California, for killing the person who robbed that business on the night of July the 2nd. Employee stated he acted in self-defense. No witness statements or other evidence contradict that assertion. The employee said that he possessed a firearm in response to a recent prior robbery at that gas station. In reaching her decision, the DA says that she benefited from a complete and efficient investigation by the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office. Humboldt County Sheriff's Office also released a statement in relation to this case, detailing some of what happened on the night of July the 2nd. It's about 9:45, and deputies were dispatched to this gas station for a report of an armed robbery with shots fired. When deputies arrived, they located an unidentified male subject outside of the business with a gunshot wound to his chest. They tried to perform life-saving efforts there on the scene, but the man succumbed to his injuries. They say upon initial investigation, deputies learned that the male subject was the suspect attempting to rob the business. The man approached an employee, later identified as 39-year-old Mark Anthony Nelson Jr., as well as a patron who were both outside of the business. Subject brandished what appeared to be a firearm. The two then fled. The man entered the store and proceeded with the robbery, and the man was later shot when he exited the business. Humboldt County Sheriff's criminal investigators responded to the scene. They began their investigation. They interviewed witnesses, served a search warrant on the business. They located a stolen firearm, which had been concealed inside of that business. They also reviewed surveillance footage depicting the inside of the business. While providing an initial statement, Nelson Jr. denied shooting the robbery suspect and provided information inconsistent with the evidence at the scene. He also denied possession of the stolen firearm. Through further investigation, it was determined that Nelson Jr. made efforts to conceal the firearm prior to law enforcement arrival. It also was determined that Nelson Jr. is legally prohibited from possessing firearms and had been in possession of that stolen firearm and had used that firearm to shoot the robbery suspect. So while this case may not result in any charges for the actual shooting, it could very well be that individual, 39-year-old Mark Anthony Nelson Jr., will face charges for being a felon in possession or being a prohibited person in possession of a firearm, as well as charges related to that stolen firearm. Not quite as clear. I mean, it's a clear-cut case of self-defense, but it's not exactly going to absolve Mr. Nelson of all possible charges there in that incident. Finally today, our good deed of the day from Houston, Texas, where ABC 13 says a man helped to de-escalate an arrest in Houston, help calm suspects down, and help officers take the suspect into custody. This was inside of a convenience store in Houston, southeast Houston. Witnesses had reported that this guy had a weapon, may have been on some sort of drug. He was pacing back and forth inside of this convenience store. When officers arrived, one witness told the officers he has a knife, a butcher's knife. Officers began to try to take this gentleman into custody. He was putting up quite a fight, and that is when Ulrich Field stepped in, calling out to Houston police officers to ensure a safe and peaceful arrest. He said, "Don't get on his neck now." The officer said, "I'm on his back." And that's when the officer turned to Mr. Fields and actually asked for help. So can you help him? Can you explain what's going on? Fields said at first he thought the officer was being sarcastic. He said, "I thought he was trying to bait me into a situation to get me in trouble. But when he came back and asked again, I knew he needed help." He said, "So right there and then, my heart went out to both of them." Fields has his own criminal history. In fact, he describes himself as a former career criminal who found God and turned his life around. And he said he wanted the suspect who was being arrested to have that same opportunity of redemption. He said the suspect needed a chance to have a second chance, not to get hurt, not to get killed, not to get brutally beat up. So Fields actually kneels down. He's talking to the suspect, and he's trying to explain what's going on. He says, don't do all that resisting, bro. He said, chill out. They're going to put the handcuffs on you. Give him your arm, man. Give him your arm. Give him your arm, bro. I don't want to see you get hurt. I don't want to see you get hurt. Eventually, Fields actually helped to position the suspect's hands, helped officers handcuff him. He said he was grateful that he was there at the moment. He doesn't live anywhere near the gas station, but he said he was on his way to help a friend in the area when he stopped for some gum. Incident remains under investigation, but in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing to help both the officer and the suspect in that situation. Ulrich Fields in Houston, Texas. Thank you, sir, for your very good deed. That is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. I want to thank you for being a part of the program as well. We will be back next week with more of the latest Second Amendment news and information from all across the nation. Until then, don't forget to check out bearingarms.com throughout the day for more Second Amendment coverage. And have a great weekend. Until we talk again, be well, be safe, and be free. We'll see you soon with another edition here of Bearing Arms Cam & Company.